Chapter 18. Dickerson whistled into the mic, making Callie jump.
Well, that's got it,
he said, a grin in his voice. Although she wanted to turn or check her rear cam, she kept her eyes focused on the camera feed facing down the hallway. It had taken Dickerson more than 10 minutes to cut through the hatch, and he'd exhausted the fuel from 3 of their cutting beams. They had 1 remaining. After that, they were down to their vibro blades to pry and cut. Against Atmos steel, and most of the structures in the ship, they would be useless.
Sheesh,
Carb said.
Never thought you'd finish.
Callie did her best to keep from nodding in agreement. The seconds had ticked off like years while she stared at the darkness they'd left behind, waiting for something to come crawling or jetting through the corridor to attack. She blinked her eyes, suddenly realizing how dry they were. For all she knew, she hadn't blinked in the past 10 minutes. Corporal, I can punch through now. Okay, Dickerson, Callie said. Carb, get an angle on the door. If something comes out of there, I want a flechette up its ass.
Hi, boss,
Carb said.
You keeping an eye on our 6?
Yeah, Callie said. Closer than I want to, she thought. She flicked her eyes between the darkness ahead of her and the video of the rear cam. Carb had stepped to one side, her rifle pointed at the hatch. Dickerson had moved to the other side, one of his mag boots raised in the air. As much as she wanted to turn and join them so she wouldn't feel so terrified of the darkness ahead of her, she steadied the rifle and squatted in a combat stance. They were her squad. They were her responsibility. And nothing was coming down this corridor without having to go through her first. Dickerson's boot shot out and made contact with the nearly 2-meter tall and 1.5-meter wide cut he'd made in the hatch. The boot's magnetics strengthened the blow, and the cutout crumpled into the short hallway beyond. Dust and gas shot out from the opening as the pressurized atmosphere was released into vacuum. Dickerson stepped back, his rifle pointed at the hole.
Hatchway open,
he said. Clear it, Callie said, doing her best to keep her voice steady. It was bad enough staring into the abyss ahead of her, but now her mind kept conjuring new threats speeding through the science section entrance to kill them all.
Clearing,
Dickerson said. Through her rear cam feed, she watched the large Marine crouch, rifle pointed into the gloom beyond the mangled hatch, his suit lights focused to maximum illumination. She half expected an arm or tentacle to lash out at the light before wrapping around his waist and quickly pulling him into the darkness. A beat passed, then another. The rapid thump of her heart seemed to vibrate through every particle of her being. Finally, Dickerson crouch-walked through the hatchway. She added his helmet cam to her feeds and occasionally flicked her eyes from the darkness before her to the feed on her HUD. Dickerson's cam displayed a 2-meter-long tube leading to yet another hatch. A wave of despair fell across her. How the fuck they were going to get out of here if... Dickerson said. He swung his helmet to the side and illuminated a lever.
Well, I can power up the emergency power for the interior hatch. How's that going to help us?
Carb asked.
We're still going to have to cut through, and we only have 1 cutting beam left. True,
Dickerson said.
But if we can get the hatch powered, we'll at least know.
If it comes to it, Callie said, we'll just blow the void damn thing. Dickerson's suit cam bounced.
You sure you want to chance that?
Try the damn door first, Dickerson.
Aye, Corporal,
Dickerson said. He reached the lever and began pumping. An indicator light glowed red, yellow, and finally green.
We have power,
he said. Callie kept her eyes focused on the gloom, fighting the urge to lock her vision on the rear cam. Get it open, she said, hoping she managed to keep the fear out of her voice.
Shit fire and save matches,
Dickerson said. Carb groaned.
What does that even mean, Dickerson? It means,
he snickered,
that I got the inner door open.
Callie grinned. Outstanding. Give me a 5-meter recon, Dickerson.
Aye, Corporal, I'm on it.
They'd cut in through the outer door. If the inner door still worked and could form a seal, they wouldn't have to worry about welding a patch to cover the egress into the corridor. That also meant there would be no way for pine cones or the starfish things to get inside the science section. You're assuming, she told herself, the rest of this area is secure. Yeah, she was. Dickerson, she said, was there pressure inside the inner door? No, he said, there wasn't. Kelly's heart sank. There had been pressure between the inner and outer doors. That was probably left over from the last ingress to the science station. But if there hadn't been pressure inside, it stood to reason that a seal failed in another area or something had torn through one of the bulkheads. She'd hoped they could fortify the area, maybe take a rest before they continued for the escape pods, and not have to worry about another attack. Kelly sighed, the exhalation close to a sob. No pressure meant no respite, no safe haven from the creatures. "You're tired," she told herself. "You're tired and scared, and there's nothing left in the tank. But you need to keep going. Keep your squad safe. Keep yourself safe," her father's voice said in her mind. The ghost of a grin touched her lips.
Okay, Corporal,
Dickerson said.
"No pine cones, nothing out of the ordinary here. Not even any corpses." "About damn time,"
Carb said. Kelly stood from her combat stance. "Carb, get Elliot inside. I'll cover,"
"Aye, boss."
Carb said. She glanced at her rear cam and watched Carb bend down to keep Elliot's helmet from smashing into the hatch. When she flicked her eyes back to her forward cam, her mouth opened in an O. The darkness shimmered. The lights from her suit seemed to grow dim and then disappear. The edges of the dark corridor seemed to vibrate as if the abyss of black was moving toward her. Callie stepped backward to the hatch. The darkness had moved toward her, growing with her every step. She nearly screamed when she backed into the hatch, her body going rigid with fear. She stood paralyzed, afraid to move, while the gloom advanced on her. She could barely see a meter in front of her now, as though the power in her suit was slowly fading to nothing.
"Corporal,"
Dickerson said.
"what's going on?"
The sound of his voice broke through the fugue. "Coming," she said in a shaky voice. Kelly crouched and walked backward through the broken hatch and into the airlock. Something touched her shoulder and a scream rose in her throat. Her eyes flicked to the rear cam and she saw Dickerson standing behind her.
"Come on, Corporal,"
he said. She continued walking backward until she stepped through the inner hatch and into the science section. Dickerson loitered for a moment at the hatch, his body stiffening. He punched the panel beside the hatch and it quickly descended, cutting them off from the corridor. He remained standing there, his suit lights aimed at the trans-aluminum oval window in the door.
"What is it?"
Carb asked. Dickerson finally turned, his helmet pointed at Callie.
"What did you see?"
he asked. Callie shook her head. "Nothing," she said.
"Really?"
Dickerson said.
"Because it seemed like the shadows out there were eating my lights."
A tremor of relief coursed through her body. She wasn't losing her mind after all. He'd seen what she had. The feeling departed as she realized what that meant. "It kept advancing," she said, "like a wall pushing toward me. It moved at me with every step I took."
"Fuck,"
Dickerson said.
"That's just fucking great." "What are you talking about?"
Carb asked.
"Yeah,
Elliot said.
cut the shit and tell us what's going on."
Kelly turned, happy to see her bright suit lights cutting through the gloom like a torch through plastic. The darkness, it just kept getting, darker? She shook her head. "I know that doesn't make sense, but the light just seemed to disappear into it." Carb grunted.
"Well, you're either having a shared hallucination or something else is going on. Some kind of black hole, maybe?" "Something else,"
Dickerson muttered.
"Black holes swallow photons, but you can still see the light flowing into it. Plus, we'd be beyond fucking dead if that were the case."
"You're suggesting a gravitational anomaly?" Kelly asked.
"Yeah,
Dickerson said.
unless there's something else that can do that. I'll be damned if I have any ideas on that."
What Kelly wouldn't give to talk to Black right now. The AI would doubtless ask endless questions about the phenomenon, perhaps even ask her to drop a nanoprobe. Shit, she thought. Wish I had done that. Then again, the tiny probe's lights would most likely have shown them nothing. Nanoprobes, at least the ones the SFMC carried, had little in the way of sensors beyond infrared filters, radiation sensors, and wide-spectrum light. They were meant for short-distance recon, not scientific discovery. "Scientific," she said aloud.
"What, Corporal?"
Dickerson asked. She stared, unaware she'd been speaking over the comms. A blush heated her cheeks, and she cleared her throat. "We're in the damn science section,"
"So?"
Dickerson said. "Well, it's probable they've got some records in here. Maybe even something we can use for a weapon," Elliot said.
"Well, we're here. Might as well explore. Besides, we're going to need to find another O2 station."
Carb sighed.
"Luggage is right. If this place is sealed, we should also be able to use it for a readout if we get ambushed."
Dickerson laughed.
Once again, you're using words I didn't know you knew.
Carb turned her helmet in his direction and slowly raised a middle finger.
What do you think, Corporal?
Kelly shook her head. No, this place isn't sealed. If Dickerson didn't see atmosphere escape the inner hatch, some other part of this deck is open to the rest of the ship. So as much as I'd like to use this area as a fallback, it's not going to be safe, unless we find another pressurized area.
Shit.
Dickerson sighed.
The Corporal's right.
Kelly turned her helmet to study the room. It was only 5 by 5 meters inside, and there didn't seem to be much in the way of supplies or debris. Another hatch separated the airlock from the rest of the deck. She studied the walls and grinned. Looks like pressure suits are over there, Callie said, and pointed at a closet inset into the wall. The photosensitive paint glowed a bright green. The words, decon suits, stood out against the gray steel walls.
Don't think we need those,
Dickerson said. No, Kelly agreed, but that at least means that there should be some pressurized quarantine or scientific areas. Dickerson chuckled.
Okay, so we look for those first.
Right. Kelly brought up the schematics. Looks like there's a 3-way branching corridor beyond that hatch. I see some unmarked large spaces along each hallway. Not sure if there are multiple ingress-egress points to each, but I'm betting those areas are the pressurized ones.
Makes sense to me,
Carp said. Dickerson walked to the pressure suit closet and pulled it open. 3 suits hung from fasteners at the rear. The backside of the door had multiple small O2 tanks.
Well, guess we should take these too, just in case. Those fit our suits?
Carp asked.
I think so,
Dickerson said. He pulled one of the tanks from the door and steadied the connectors.
Yeah, these will do in a pinch.
He offered one to Carb and she stuffed it in her pouch. Kelly did the same, and Dickerson slotted the last in his belt.
Shit,
Elliot said.
Guess I'm out of luck.
No, Kelly said. If there's one here, the other airlocks should have them too. Plus, I bet there's more inside this section anyway. Elliot sighed.
How come the newly minted Corporal has her shit together and we don't?
Kelly rolled her eyes, although through the black visor he had no way of seeing it. First off, never compliment an NCO. You should know that. Second of all, we're all still alive. She pointed at Dickerson and then Carb. And believe me, you and I would both be dead if not for them.
So we have her shit wired.
Dickerson snickered. She growled into the mic. As wired as I could hope for.
I'm not sure that was a compliment, boss,
Carb said. Kelly chuckled. Have you seen your jacket? Carb thought for a moment and put a fist against her waist.
Okay, fair point.
She shook her head and gripped her rifle.
So what are we waiting for? Central corridor?
Dickerson asked.
I think that leads to an airlock.
Kelly brought the schematics back up on her HUD. The central corridor bisected aft in 4 portions of the section and connected with a mirror of the way they'd entered. Dickerson was probably right, and the aft portion of the science section met a similar junction, although it wasn't marked. She frowned. We have labels almost everywhere else, but not in the science section?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Dickerson said.
I'm going to detonate the trio storage array when we get back to Trident. Why the void are they playing games with us? Because they didn't give us everything?
Dickerson nodded.
Yeah, Carb. Has to be a reason this area is blank.
He was right about that. At the same time, Black had been helping them through the ship. Kelly wasn't sure she trusted the AI's comments about communications, but it was possible Black was doing her best to shepherd them to safety. So if the areas on the schematics were blank, Kelly had a difficult time believing it was Black's doing. And where did she get the schematics? The trio. What had Captain Kovacs's final message said? The trio could have saved us? The memory of the terrified, angry, sorrowful face saying those words filled Kelly's mind. The captain had been too exhausted to express it properly, but Kelly thought rage boiled beneath the surface of every syllable she'd said. What could the trio have done? No, she said to herself. The real question is why? Why? How many damn times had she heard that in the last few hours? From Carb, from Dickerson, and from herself. The words seemed to echo with every new horror, every new anomaly, and every corpse they'd found. Why? Kelly hoped like hell they'd figured that out.